So this is the Google Sheets tutorial, and we will be starting with a blank spreadsheet, although you can select templates over here. So we're just going to go with the spreadsheet that I've set up here, which is 0, 1. And we are going to start with a blank spreadsheet for the first section. So right now we have a blank empty spreadsheet in default settings. So now we're just going to look at our menu. Over here, you can, this menu is the same as all Google products, except over here, there's a present button, you can share, rename title, etc. And over here in file, there are some, not many new settings here, except for spreadsheet settings, where you can see some general items and calculation items. So file is mostly different, except you can download it in different formats. You can edit. There are not many other features here except for paste values, paste format. These are different types of pasting options exclusive to spreadsheets, as well as these delete options. And find and replace is there too. You can clear notes as well. Notes are basically like comments, except other people can't really see them. Freeze basically freezes the in view menu. You can freeze the top rows or columns. For example, if you write here, let's say 55, and you want to, let's say, keep this row not from scrolling down, you will be able to see it instead of letting it scroll down. You can select freeze one row and it would freeze. The same thing would go for columns. If you go to view, freeze one column, it would be the same thing. So if we go to view grid lines, you would eliminate the grid lines right there. Protected ranges right there. If you have protected the sheet, if you protected certain ranges there. The formula bar is over here is if you're inserting functions into your spreadsheet. So there would be uncheck the formula bar and it disappears. So check the formula bar. And show formula bars is normally unchecked. But let's say you enter a formula here. Let's say you want to find out the average of these two numbers and you insert function average right there. Normally, the average of these two numbers is 55. So normally, it would not be visible. The formula would not be visible in the cell, but you can see it in here. You can go view and click show formulas, and now there it is visible. And by the way, now that we are here, one way to reorganize and reorder columns and rows, you want to change the size, make sure you don't have a gray bar and you get a blue bar instead, and you can just drag it right here. You just drag it like this to get change size. Make sure you get a gray bar if you're dragging it. So like this, get a gray bar in between where you want to put it. Same would go for columns and rows right there. See how it does that? Except you can't move columns and rows when they're frozen. So now I have to go and unfreeze everything. I have to unfreeze everything and then move. See how it moves like that? Same thing for rows. You can move them right there. One will put this to the top there. Anyways, uncheck show formulas, and most of these are pretty obvious. Hidden sheets, see over here, there are multiple spreadsheets. There are different spreadsheets you can use within one spreadsheet. All you have to do is go here, click add sheet to get a new sheet. And you can, in here, you can delete, duplicate, copy to a new spreadsheet. You can rename it, change the color, which would change it like this. You can protect the sheet and hide the sheet. You can move right or move left. So let's just select hide sheet and view over here, hidden sheets. And I would just make it right there. View, zoom, and full screen are also pretty obvious there. So let's go back to insert. You can insert a row above or a row below. And these two are pretty obvious. You can insert column left, column right. You can insert cells and shift down. So let's say write something here like GG, or you can insert cells and shift this thing down. You can insert a cell right there and shift down. You can insert a cell right there and shift this thing right. So that's how it will work. You can insert a chart image into a cell or over a cell. You can change the image settings by going in, selecting the image and changing the image parameters. I'll cover that in a different video. You can insert a drawing or a form. You would insert a form, you would make a new form, and the data from your form would show up as the form responses right over here. So there's a form right there, and the data you get from your form is automatically transferred to its own spreadsheet. Now let's just delete this. We don't need that now. So, okay, first we've got to unlink the form. Now let's stay over here and insert drawing. You can insert a functions, which are functions are basically things that you can do to data. You want to modify data, you want to turn it into something else, you want to turn it, like let's say you have a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet, you want to figure out their average, or you want to convert them all to currency. If you want to convert them all to date, you want to figure out what the day of the year a form was done or something. They're all the functions you need are here. They're not just for mathematical stuff, they're also for language stuff too. You can change for languages into other languages, like we're going to get into our next part of the tutorial. You can click learn more to learn more about functions. And here's a Google Sheets function list. You can learn about them and search for specific keywords, narrow by which topic they are, etc. And we will cover more about functions in the next part of the tutorial. Over here, you can insert a link. You would put the text, like let's say here, and you would be able to paste a link into here, paste a hyperlink. Over here, you could click insert link, and this would be the text of the cell, and let's say, I don't know, 55. You would link straight there, and it would go right to number 55. So there it is. So over here, in insert menu, there's two more things you can do, three more actually. Checkbox, you would insert a checkbox into there. It's a Boolean value, yes or no, 1 or 0. You can insert a comment into there. So there's a comment. And notes are basically the same thing as comments, except you can't reply to them or share anything. So you just type here note. So there you go. Notes are in black, comments are in orange. So that's the difference between note and comment. You can insert a new sheet. All you have to do is just make a new sheet, or you can just go here. So delete this. By the way, this menu is all sheets. So there. Format is basically, you can change the theme of the spreadsheet, which makes the theme a little bit different. You can change the numbers into like regular numbers. Like one number can have many different formats. Like let's say it's a regular number, it's a percent or scientific number. All these are the real number. 1000.12 is equal to all of these. So yeah, you can select more formats and different formats. You can convert all the numbers in your spreadsheet into a different certain format. These are pretty obvious: bold, italic, underline, strike through. Change the font size, align to the left, center, right, or top, middle, bottom, which are the horizontal lines and the vertical lines. You can merge a bunch of cells here. Let's say you want to merge all of these cells into one big cell. You go to format and click here, merge cells, merge all horizontally or vertically. It only preserves the top leftmost value. It won't work because there's an average problem. Now go here and then click merge, which by the way you can do over here too. Only preserve the top leftmost value, and there you are. Actually preserve these bottom two, sorry, because the average was at the top. So merge all. There you go. Average at the bottom there. If you want to unmerge, just click unmerge. So back to format, you change the font size, align, conditional formatting, or alternating colors. We'll get to that later. Different text rotation. We'll go to that later. And conditional formatting, align, font size. Yeah, and you can clear formatting, clear everything. Data is basically data stuff. You can sort the column by alphabetical order or by reverse alphabetical order. You can sort by range, create filters, filter views, which are basically like filtering out certain types of data. Go back, validate the data pivot table. These are just some additional features, and you can clean up your sheet, trim the white space off, and you can group certain cells. Tools, you can create a form right over here, just like insert form, tools, create form. These are just some tools in sheet. You can protect the sheet over here. Add-ons, you can just get some add-ons, and help is just the Sheets help. You can click here, Sheets training. You would learn about Google Sheets training. So there, that's the top menu for you. And this is pretty obvious, except you can turn these are some new buttons over here. You can format as currency, $55, formatted as a percent, as a decrease decimal place, increase decimal place, and more formats. You can go here, formatting, change the font size, italic, bold, strike through, text color. You can change the text color of a cell. You can change the color of a cell. You can just fill it like that. And borders. You can also change the borders of a cell like this. Let's just say merge, just select all these cells, just hold shift and select. Select borders. You can change the different types of borders: inner borders, middle borders, vertical borders, outside borders, left, right, top, there, and just clear borders. There are different border styles too. You merge a bunch of cells too. See, look at that. It all just became one cell. Click unmerge there. This is the alignment of the text. So this is the horizontal alignment, left, center, middle. This is a vertical alignment. Let's just say drag this out a little bit more. So right now it's on bottom alignment. That's top alignment, middle, and bottom. In text wrap, if there's more than one component, here's the text rotation, and you can say by what degree. And over here is just pretty much the same. And click on this Sigma button if you want to insert a function. And so there, that's basically it for the first section of this tutorial. And in the next section, we will be learning about functions and how to use them. So this is the second section of the Google Sheets tutorial. We'll be learning about functions. And unlike the first and the next sections of the tutorial, this will be very short, because obviously we can't cover all the functions here. I'll just show you how to use them. If you want to learn more about specific functions, just go to the Google Sheets functions list, and you can learn about functions over here. The link will be in the description. To learn more about functions, as I mentioned, how I will provide the link, and also you can find it yourself by going to support.google.com doc/table/25273. And also you can go to this website known as bazroberts.com/sheet functions, and you can learn about how specific functions work. So functions, as I said before, are formulas that manipulate our data. So now let's make a new sheet so that we can use our functions here. So now I'm just going to demonstrate how a function would work. So over here, let's just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? These are 5 numbers over here. So what you would do, see, notice in the formula bar, there's no formula right here. So mass select all of them by selecting shift and go to insert function, or you can just go to the Sigma icon and go insert. Over here, there are different types of functions, all, array, database. These are different types of functions to serve your different causes. And click learn more to learn about different functions. That's how you would get to the function list. So anyways, go to the Sigma icon, and here's some basic functions like sum. The sum would be the sum of, this is it would show you when you make a function appear, the function would appear in the cell. Before you deselected, the function would appear in the cell. The answer to the function would appear in the cell. 15, that's the sum of the numbers 1 through 5. The function would appear, the function syntax would appear, meaning you need a first value, which is a range. If you want a range, let's say A1 to A5, you would do A1 colon A5. There'll be all the commas there. Let's say you want to add more, like let's say you want to add like 3, you want to add the next 5, 10 numbers, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 6, 7, 7 and 8. You want to add the next 3 numbers, 6, 7, and 8. Then what you would do is go over here and select all of these, and then insert function sum. You'd be A1 to B5. So A1 to B5, it's a square. The top left corner and the bottom right corner, it's a square. It adds up all those numbers. So the sum of the numbers 1 to 8 is 36. So you notice how when you click on it, it appears, the information appears, but when you deselect it, it doesn't. So there's one more way you can learn more about functions. So go to here and select all of the cells. You can go here and insert a formula if you don't want it to disappear like it did. So go here, insert function sum, and then let's say you want the average of A1 to A5. And then you would put it here. If you want to learn more about a function directly in the sheets without going to the function list, you can go here and see how it works. There's about example of the function, and then there's the return about, where it tells you about the function, and then it gives you the syntax, which is how you use the function. Over here, when you click learn more, it gives you a little bit of a demonstration in action with the help function. It returns the sum of a series of numbers, and there are some functions have videos, so you can learn more about them. So sample usage, there's syntax, which is how to use them, and there are notes, like specific things you need to know about. And it also gives you these cool sections, see also, which are related functions. And it gives you examples too, like in a spreadsheet, it would add them all up. So total of these. So it would give you how the function works. So yeah, that's an example of a function, and you can use any function you want for a relevant purpose, and functions can really make your sheet look a lot better. So there you go. There's the functions for you, and stay tuned for the next part of the video, how to turn your data into a sheet.
So this is the section 3 of the Google Sheets tutorial, and we will be looking at how to turn our data into a chart or a graph. And over here is just some test data that I made up, some random data. So these are different tests that users have taken, and these are the 8 users who have taken the tests. And this is the average, which can simply be obtained by using the average function for a specific column. For example, over here, you can see the function is average B2 colon B9. So there are 2 ways you can make charts. And one way would be to use the explore option. It would automatically make some charts for you using the AI. And the other option would be to just select the data, relevant data, go to insert and select chart, where you would make the chart right there. So before we may go into editing the chart, let's just go closer into the explore menu. Then go to the explore menu, and there are several things you can do with explore, as I've mentioned about explore before. This is the explore example, which you get if there's no data in your sheet. In the answers section, you can ask specific questions about your data. The pivot table is for those which have multiple columns. And the analysis section is where it automatically makes more graphs for you. Notice how the columns which are used in the charts are highlighted on the spreadsheet itself in different colors. See how teams, the columns G through J, G and up to J are highlighted in different colors. You go up to more in analysis, you'll get more graphs, and you can see how different types of graphs are made. And also there are specific facts which are mentioned about the graphs. And now let's go back to our graph here. And before we edit our chart, there are several things you can do. You can edit the chart, you can delete the chart, you can download the chart in a variety of formats. You can publish the chart as a link or interactive image or embed it in the same way. You can change the publish content settings. You can publish the entire document or automatically republish when changes are made. Also, you can copy the chart and use alt text. Move to on sheet we will cover in a few seconds. Alt text is basically like a screen used for screen readers. It's just a description of the chart for which is automatically read out by the screen reading software. And now let's use the move to own sheet function, which would literally move it to its own sheet right over here. Notice how it's just gone right there. And there are several things you can do. If you click on here, edit the chart editor, you can see how there are two things which are setup and customize. Setup basically sets up the chart, like chart's basic settings, like what type of chart is it, where it's getting its data from, and so on. And customize allows you to customize various settings. So now let's go over the features here. Over here, you can change the chart type to whatever you want. Notice there are three, just like which were suggested in our explore menu, which were a column chart, line chart, and a bar chart. There are other types of charts suggested here, and notice that some of them won't be relevant and won't be able to be used. For example, if you use a GeoChart, an error will read on your screen because you don't have country data. Same here over here, organizational chart will lead to an error because you don't have text in your data, only numbers. Stacking basically stacks these columns on top of each other. It's only relevant if it's a bar chart or a column chart. So standard stacks them on top of each other without scaling. 100% stacks them and scales them out of a percent, out of 100. So now let's put it back to none, no stacking, right? This data range basically tells you where is the chart getting the data from. It'll update if you change anything on that sheet. For example, right here we have data range sheet 2 right over there, and A1 through D10, which means column cells A1 through D10 in a square, the highlighted region, or rectangle actually in this case. Let's go back to edit charts. And notice here there are series. Series are basically like different colors, different type items in the legend. Say test 1 is a series, all the blue bars. Test 2 is a series, all the red bars. Test 3 is a series, all the yellow bars. If you switch rows and columns, so you notice how instead of the test scores at the bottom, the tests are at the bottom. Now all of these are the series. All the red bar, blue bars, red bars, yellow, green, pink, teal, blue, pink-ish, and orange. If you switch rows and columns, that's what will happen. When you switch rows and columns and you check yes and you uncheck use column A as headers, this legend will just disappear. That's the same thing what will happen if you uncheck row 1 as headers. If it's in the default state, it will just disappear. So now let's keep it like this, and now customize. Most of these items are pretty easy, but I will just explain them to you very quickly. So chart style, pretty obvious. You just change the background color to whatever you want. Let's just change it to a light blue. You change the font border color, reset layout, resets everything. You can maximize, which zooms into the data, but in this case, it cuts off some of the data. So let's uncheck that. You can turn the graph 3D if you want, and you can compare mode, which allows you to compare certain items in the graph once it's done. So now let's go to chart and axis titles. There are 4 titles which you can use. There's the main title, chart title, subtitle, which should be right under that, smaller font. There's the horizontal axis title, which would be right there, and the vertical axis title, which would be right there. So now you can do several things. You can change the font size, the format, the text color. You can change the alignment. Right now it's left aligned, but you can change it to center or right. Let's keep it at left. You change it to students test scores right here. Students test scores. You can see that. Chart subtitle, same thing. Subtitle. See how it shows up there. Horizontal axis title would be the bottom axis as we see. So let's just name it users. Users. Yes, users. And the vertical axis title would be named score. You can see how it appears right there. So now let's look at the third and most important item in this chart editor, which is series. Remember what I told you about series? Each of these items in the legend is a separate series for each iteration of the item in an x-axis. So right here, we're gonna click apply to all series. These are settings which you can change to the chart, but right now you can also change it to individual items in the series. But for now, we're just gonna do general settings. Format, you can change the line color. It's auto with a no line color, but you can change it to green or whatever color you want. See how there's a line around surrounding each of the bars. Change the opacity, which is basically the transparency, and the line dash type, line thickness, and the axis, which would be the either left axis or the right axis, which is like this y-axis would be shifted to the left. Right now it's in the left axis, but you can shift it to the right axis if you want, which make it look like this. Let's shift it to the left axis because that's the most common. Format data point is basically if you want to keep some of the data separate, like for example, if add here, see these averages are not actually part of the test. So these averages are not actually part of the test. They're just averages. So they're not test scores. So let's just use a data point and you can make it a separate color. So let's say test one average, we made it a faded blue. Test two average, we're going to make that a faded red like this. And test three, we're going to make this a faded yellow like this. And see how it's all different like that. That's a format data point for you. You can see, keep some of the data separate. So error bars are basically like margins of error. Like let's say you got a test score of 90% and you have a total error margin of 10%, 5% either way. You would have at most a 95% score or 85% score if you do this test multiple times. So there are error bars for you. In this case, it would be automatically default would be percent and a value of 10% in either direction. You can see how this score of 100 would go up, score of 90 would go up to 100 in one direction and down to 80 in the other direction. That's a percent value of 10. You can change it to none, constant, percent, or standard deviation, which would change it slightly. So let's just keep it to a percent. And another thing, data labels is basically it labels the chart with what item is there, what's the value of each bar. So you can change the settings of the data label here, change the type, like a value or none. You can change the font size, format, color, change the position. Auto would be center, inside in, inside base, outside in. So let's just change it to inside end, which would bring everything inside the top end of the bar. There's one more thing you can do with error bar data labels. You can change the number format. So right now it's just from source data, meaning it's directly taken from our sheet over here. But you can change it to, let's say you want to change it to a currency, for example. Now 100 becomes $100. Now let's bring it back to source data. There's one more thing, which is trend lines. You can see how the trend lines are basically like a line superimposed on top of the bar graph, just saying the trend. How is it going so far? How is the average of the thing? It just adds up the average of the thing. Where could it go? Where's our trend going at? So there's the trend right here at 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. This trend for the blue line is going up, although the trends for the yellow lines and the red lines are mostly level. See, they're slightly going up as the yellow is remaining mostly level. So yeah, you can change the type of trend line. It's linear as the default, but you can change the different types of trend lines. different types of trend lines right there. So yeah, the moving average is like it's the average of each of the bars. So linear. Here you can change the line settings. It would be different from whatever type you select. For linear, it's just line opacity, line thickness, and label. You can label this. It would be directly on top of the legend. You say none, or you can use custom, which would put trend line for test one as the light blue line, light red line, light yellow line, different tests. Show R squared would basically show the equation of the line. Custom label, you can change it to whatever you want this label. So there. One more thing before we move on past series is you can change, remember what I mentioned about apply to all series? Now you can change settings just to one series. Let's use test one as an example here. You can change the fill color of all the series. For example, right now it's blue. So the fill color is automatically something like this. So, but you can change it to whatever you want. Let's say you want to change it to pink. There it is. The all bars are now changed to pink, except for the data point, which is now different. So let's just change it back to blue, or you can change the line color separately. Say you want to change it to red. Notice how all the bars which are blue are now highlighted in the red. So you can change it individually. You can bring an axis just for a series. So right there is a right axis is there just for this blue series, although it's there right for this blue series, although there is still a left axis for the red and yellow series, test one, test two, and test three. So it doesn't really matter here. So let's just keep it to the left axis. You can manually edit the data points and also error bars. You can remove them manually for each series. Like you'd say uncheck them, you notice how they disappear for each series. Same thing goes for data labels and the trend lines. Notice how they would disappear for each series. Now we can move on past series. You can go to legend. Pretty simple. You can just change the position, font size, font position be left, top, not top, bottom, left, right, inside, auto. So let's just put it to the bottom. That looks better. So now three more things. Horizontal axis, again, not much things you can do. Font size, label, format. You can reverse the axis order, basically mirrors everything across this the vertical axis. See how test score 1 is at the left, average is at the right. Notice when I click reverse axis order, everything is mirrored. So the slant labels, right now it's at a slant of 0 degrees, no slant. You can slant the labels like this. You can add your own custom slant. Let's say what 25 degrees, it's not there. There, see, 25 degrees. Let's just keep it at 30-degree slant and reverse axis order. Two more things, vertical axis, a little more things you can do. Font size, format, text color. You can show axis line, which would show a line right there. Makes it more clear cut. And there's one more thing, a couple of things you can do, minimum value and maximum value. Right now, the minimum value of the y-axis, which is the vertical, would be 0, and the maximum value would be 125. Notice that even though we have value, the highest value is 100, because the error bars are there, it goes up to 125. See, because it's a regular increments of 25, and the next increment is 125. So let's just change the minimum value down to 20 and bring this up to 90, down to 90. So there we are. See how there's a difference right there. Even though this is at 90 and this is 100, this is at more or less the same level. If this was 2D, you wouldn't notice a difference at all. It's only because of the depth perception that you can see that there's a difference at all. And if there were no labels, you would not be able to tell the difference between this bar and this bar. But the fact is there is a difference. This bar is only 90, while this bar is at 100. But you can't tell because the highest number is 90. That's what happens if you allow bounds to hide data. It literally crops off the chart at either end. So if you uncheck allow bounds to hide data, now the chart can go beyond the bounds of the legend. So there we are. Now let's just uncheck minimum and keep the maximum at 100 because we don't want 125. See, now it just goes right there. See, the error bars just cut off like that. So yeah, scale factor default just multiplies the vertical axis or divides it by a certain amount. The decimal numbers multiply and the positive, like the regular numbers divide. So let's say 0.1, it would actually multiply it by 10. 0.01 would multiply it by 100. 100 would divide it by 100. This would divide it by 1,000 and so on. Let's keep it at default. Log scale makes it proportionate. Number format, same thing here. Remember we changed it to currency. Now we can change this to a percent because it's a percent score, remember? But now notice how the percent just gets multiplied. Say, because let's say if you have 90 would actually be like 9,000%. 100 would be 10,000%. The number 1 is equal to 100%. So like decimal numbers like 0.8, they're equal to percents. So you would have to divide the scale factor by 100 in order to get a proper percent. So there you go. You have 100%, 75%, 50, 25, and 0%. So there you are. You have vertical axis. Last thing, grid lines and ticks. Horizontal axis, not much you can do with the horizontal axis except with ticks. What are ticks? So basically they're these things. They just put a line right there. That's not going to be very useful for us for the horizontal axis anyway. So there, the ticks position, you can change the position of the ticks. You can change the length, thickness, and color. So let's just say none right now. Vertical axis, last thing we're going to do. There are lines and there are ticks. Horizontal axis doesn't have grid lines, it only has ticks, but the vertical axis also has grid lines. The grid lines are like these lines. See how they are highlighted in gray, dark gray? The grid lines go directly out of items in the y-axis. So the major spacing type means there's a count, step count, or 0. There's basically the same. So yeah, count, let's just use count for now. And basically count means how many items are there in the y-axis. Auto count meaning this would be 5 right now, but if you say none, there would be no items. Change it to 1, there would be 1, which is 0. Change it to 2, there would be 100 upper bound. 3, the middle bound. 4, there. And 5 is like this. So the minor spacing types are basically the spaces in between items in the y-axis. So spacing type, a count spacing type, and let's just say 4. You can see 4 very faint lines between 0 and 25. There'll be 5, 10, 15, and 20 respectively. So major grid lines, you can change the grid line color to, let's say, darker. And the major grid lines, notice you change the major grid line color to black and you automatically change the minor grid line color to that same color too. That's the influence that the major grid lines have on the minor grid lines. Change the minor grid lines separately too. See, notice how it's a little bit more faded now, just like we want it. So there we are. See, they're like visible now. Last thing, major ticks are like these things, except with the major lines. Let's just keep them inside and we can check minor ticks. They exist. All you have to do is change the major ticks. They're inside. Say change the minor ticks, they're now outside. So they're all the same. So yeah, that's basically our chart for now. That's basically all the features you can do with the chart editor. So I hope this is by no means an exhaustive list. You can mess around on Google Sheets yourself, do whatever you want, and you can learn new features yourself. You can go to the Google Docs tutorials, Google Workspace Learning Center right over here, and you can learn about Google Sheets training help from Google right over here, productivity guides, etc. You can go to Google Sheets function list and learn about specific functions. And of course, you can go to bazroberts.com, Google Sheets functions, and detect language. And specific functions, you can learn about specific functions over here and about Sheets itself. And of course, you can learn about Google Workspace apps over here. Speaking of Google Workspace apps, I'm going to release 3 more tutorials. One is Google Drawings, next is Google Sites, and the last Google Workspace tutorial of my YouTube channel would be Google Drive, after which I will take a break from YouTube and work on my other projects. After that, I'll maybe make some Microsoft videos and more tech videos, and as always, my guitar videos. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this Sheets video and found it useful. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, feel free to comment. And the links to all of these are in the description. So I hope you have a great day. and bye until next time.